Yeah, no, this is gonna be a bad episode for you.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. I'm just.
Oh,
This
well,
movie's
then why
not
don't
good.
you start?
This movie's not good. Last of the Mohicans, ladies and gentlemen. It's one of Eb's favorite films. What
The
number is
movie's
this for you?
not good?
Yeah, movie's not good.
Oh, you are such a maniac. We're doing Last of the Mohicans, which is one of my additions, my revisions to our top 10 lists, our top 10 favorite lists. And I'm not entirely sure why I didn't think to put it on there while we were originally making these lists, but we made the lists, we started recording the episodes, and then I just happened to watch Last of the Mohicans again, as I do probably once a year at minimum. And I was like, wait a minute, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. I like this movie more than several on my top 10 list, so it's at number 6. It's number 6. I love this film for a ton of reasons that I'm happy to get into, but your face, you're just gonna keep making that face.
Yeah.
What did you know about this movie prior? I assume this is the first time you've seen it?
Of course. It's the first time I've seen it. It's the first time I've seen it all the way through. First time I've seen it all the way through. I have seen bits and pieces of it. I was very aware of it and of its like stature. It's just it is a well-regarded film. So I was aware of it sort of growing up, but I'd never sat down because it's not my type of film for many reasons. This isn't a film I would want to watch in general. I don't love war films. I don't love history pieces that much. Like, I don't like patriotic type films. And these are sort of all like an amalgamation of what I encompass or what I think these types of films encompass. So my taste may be influencing this a little bit, but I do think there are just clear
Only a little bit?
issues.
Only a little bit?
I'll talk about it. I will clearly talk about it. I think objectively there are just some not great things in this film. Like, I don't think this film does anything really well. I feel like I'm already jumping the gun. Do you want to set this up? Set the film up for the people.
Brief introduction.
Yeah.
Ugh, already fired up. Last of the Mohicans came out in 1992 and was co-written and directed by Michael Mann, who Keith is clearly superior to. And I have a really long history with this film. It was one of my father and sister's favorite films growing up. And so they would watch it all the time. My sister's several years older than me. So they were watching it before I was allowed to watch it. And they were always talking about it. They're just raving about it. And it was like a bonding thing for them. And I was like, this movie sucks. So I kind of like rebelled against the
Where's
movie
that guy?
in theory.
I want to meet that Everett. Where's this Everett?
Yeah,
I want to talk to him.
He's 5 years old.
That's the same level I'm on.
Wavelengths.
It's
Wavelengths.
perfect. It's fucking perfect.
But yeah, so it was kind of their thing. And as I grew up, I kind of had that bad taste in my mouth. But then as I started to watch it, I think as I was, 9, 10, 11, this movie really formed a lot of the way I think about film and storytelling, and maybe more than anything, romance. I think it is such a romantic film. I think it's a romantic drama before it is anything else. Before it is an action film, before it is a war movie, it is a romance. And I love all of that, and I can remember being in 3rd, 4th grade and imagining like me running in at the last minute to save the day for like my little 3rd grade crush, and like,
Who was she?
Because he
Shout
does
her out.
that.
Who was she?
Rachel Brand.
Rachel, now you know. Now you know, Rachel.
Well, congratulations on the fame of being mentioned by this YouTube channel.
Yeah.
But yes, like it just blows. Like I could reminisce forever about all the feelings that Last of the Mohicans drummed up in me, and I'll talk about some of the things I love specifically as this episode goes on. But obviously stars Daniel Day-Lewis in sort of what I think is his most mainstream kind of crossover appeal role he's ever done.
Lincoln? You don't think Lincoln?
Well, yeah, but I mean, this is sort of his first and only attempt off the top of my head and I don't know that this is what he was specifically trying to do, so I don't mean it like that, but this was him as a movie star, like a movie star that's leading, like a leading man that's carrying a film and beating people up, and in that more traditional sense. Like he's a leading man in every film he's in, but this is like an action epic. So it's sort of out of character for him in that way. But he's phenomenal because he's always phenomenal. So we'll talk about him too.
He's pretty good. While we're here, I think if I had the opportunity to interview him just based on this film, I think the first question I would ask him is, how does it feel to be so handsome?
Yeah.
He is like a stud in this movie. I think he looks great. He's a beautiful man. He's very macho. He fits the bill. He's a great actor. I will never argue that. I just don't think the film's great. But he looks and feels very much this character.
When we watched it this last time, my girlfriend was like, he's a low-key hottie. I never knew. Because people know him as these older roles where he's like a elderly man, but he was a stud, man. Daniel Day, he'd get it.
He's a beautiful man. Never mind.
Just slowly trail off.
I'm having some complicating feelings. I didn't talk to my wife after this.
All right. Dive in, Keith.
You want me to get into it?
Let's get this knocked out of the way early, and then I'll just rave about it for a while.
You can rave about it because, okay, here are some things. I would love to hear your side of it because I will start with, I think you're jaded, obviously. Anything that you connect with, you, the general you, not you specifically, but anything you connect with as a child, especially in the way that you describe it, of course you're going to love this movie. Of course this is going to be one of your favorite movies. But if you remove yourself from that and watch it, as a mid-30s person now, I think you can start to see, I don't think the movie is that special. I don't think it's that special. I don't think it's awful. Let me preface so people don't just tear me apart in the comments or whatever.
Tear them apart.
Okay. All right, tear me a little. I don't think it is awful. I just don't think it does anything exceptionally well. I don't think the story is exceptionally riveting. I think it's fairly straightforward. Like I don't think there's anything that from a story standpoint that grabs me.
I will find you.
I think everything is very, very convenient. I think everything's very convenient for Daniel Day-Lewis and the main character, and I'll get into that just in a little bit. And I think from a technical aspect, I don't think, and going right for you, Mr. Mann, I don't think the direction is really that good. Like I was a little bit disappointed, and that's, I guess, where I want to start, because that's my number one thing that jumps out at me as I started to watch it. I feel like, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, that 70% of this film is a long telephoto lens of Daniel Day-Lewis running. I feel like that's over 60% of the film. Like it's just long telephoto lens shots. And after a while, I don't think the film's not like tremendously long as most of your films are, but after a while, I continue to feel very distant. I continue to feel like I'm watching this movie through binoculars. And as a viewer, I don't feel in the middle of these battles, these epic battle scenes, and very graphic, very violent scenes. For most of it, I'm in the sidelines. I'm in the stands. I'm in the cheap seats, looking through a super long lens, watching people run through. Rarely do I feel like I'm in the mix. Now, it's a blanket statement. I don't mean to say like there's never any wide shots. There's never any 50 millimeter lens shots. Like there are, clearly. I'm not saying, but generally speaking, I feel like most of it is, they lean on these long shots, these long telephoto lens shots that put me as a viewer really far away.
Okay. I mean, I think it's an interesting observation, what you're talking about. Like you feel like you're watching it through binoculars, because I don't think you ever want to feel that way about a film. And I get the first part of that point. I get half of your point.
Oh, great! It's a win.
yeah, it's more than usual.
Yeah.
So I can understand that. Like I obviously disagree, but what I would posit might be the intention behind that. And again, we're just obviously speculating as two people who know nothing about anything.
Yeah.
Particularly you. Sorry. I can't help but just like always throw in that shot.
Yeah, that's great. I don't know shit. Who the fuck am I? I know nothing. But that's my opinion. That's my opinion.
But what I might speculate is that sort of back to the point I brought up originally is that this has never felt, and maybe this will sound stupid, but this has never felt like an action movie to me. Like the action is not the focus. And I thought that even as a youngster watching it, that the fights and the battles, while some are a little more epic than others, and I think a couple, or at least one, the cannon fight at night at in the fort, I feel like that might have gotten beefed up since the original release, like in subsequent director's cuts, like let's add a little bit. Yep. But I always thought that the fighting, these big battles, are just sort of background. They're just sort of dressing for what's really going on, which is this story of these people, and most importantly, this love story. Like, that's why you constantly see Daniel Day running on these long lenses, because you're not in the battle. This isn't because the battle, this is the wrong way to say it, but doesn't matter in terms of the story. Of course it matters in terms of the story, but in terms of that character, his singular focus is doing this. Yep. And so I've never been overly impressed with like the fight scenes or the choreography. This isn't The Patriot or Braveheart or one of these movies where it's like, oh shit, we're in the middle of a war. This is like, oh, these guys are fighting, but what you need to care about is Daniel Day-Lewis and Madeline Stowe and their love. And that to me kind of counterbalances some of your argument.
Not necessarily. I still feel distant. Like, I get your point, and I agree. You're right. That's not the character's motivation. That's not the character's goal, and that's the journey we're going along. It's just that's a deterrent from him achieving his goal. So that's how it's relevant. But it's not relevant to his focus. So I get it, but I'm still very distant. Juxtapose the one scene that I felt was one of the strongest in terms of action was the scene when it cuts out the general's heart. You're very personal in that moment. I felt like I was next to him while he's doing that. And that was a stark contrast. So obviously they do it throughout the film is my point, but generally speaking, I felt very distant. And it was so much more powerful to be next to someone as he's holding up a fucking heart. Like it's a powerful, and it's low angle. I think it was like low angle, and it's like a little bit wider, and you feel like, oh, Jesus, this guy. Yeah. This guy's a fucking badass. Like, he does not care. And I feel like that was contrast to majority of the film. You want to talk about the love story? How convenient of a love story is this? I truly feel in my heart for me to buy, which is a phrase I think you use that I like, for me to buy that this undying love is going to make this man sacrifice everything. I have to have a strong connection. What is it about their relationship that makes me feel like he's going to not leave when he has the opportunity with everyone else?
You're not coming with us?
I got a reason to stay.
And then go through hell and high water to get her back. Like, what about that one conversation that they have under the stars?
My father's people say that at the birth of the sun and of his brother the moon, their mother died. So the sun gave to the earth her body, from which was to spring all life. And he drew forth from her breast the stars. And stars he threw into the night sky to remind him of her soul.
Because that's it. That's all it took. It's all it took. One conversation upon meeting a day ago to have this unbreakable, undying love. He recites a poem. She says, a lot
of looks mixed in, a lot of moments. They clearly had a connection.
It just felt kind of similar to Wonder Woman, to keep referencing poor films. It kind of felt a little bit like, I said a little bit, I'm just using it as a reference point, where they took it for granted. They took that relationship from an audience standpoint for granted and say, they'll just know. They'll instinctively know that this is an important relationship, and we don't really need to develop it too much. They have a nice little meet, they share some looks, and you'll just get it. And the audience will know that that's what love is. Give me examples where where this is important. Where is it in the film? Do you feel like, oh man, he really loves her?
This isn't a 2021 relationship where there's all this, you need to build up, and we're talking and we're learning and we're talking and we're learning. This is 1775. This shit is practically prehistoric. Like, your connection is quicker, and it's it's born out of lack of options. It's born out of necessity some of the time. But I mean, that still is like life, and this goes beyond romance or beyond their courtship, is like life is happening so fast and is so consequential, and your day-to-day decisions often determine your life or death. So you see someone, you have an instant infatuation and attraction to them. It's clearly mutual, it's clearly reciprocated. You share some looks, you share some moments, you have a really meaningful conversation to the two of you. Just a little later in the film, it might be right prior to him making that joke about the brunette, where they just catch each other's eyes as she's working the sick bay. She says, "What are you looking at?" He says, "I'm looking at you, miss." And he just stares at her. Like, that moment right there should be enough, because you watch Madeline Stowe's face, who does a great job, as she like is embarrassed and blushes, but then kind of returns it and is kind of stoic and strong.
And her first reaction is one of unease because of being stared at that boldly and directly by someone who says, "I like you, I want you," and everything in between. And then a kind of wildness, that fire rises within her. And in that kind of declaration of the independence of my own will and what I want to do, which is, I'm liking what I'm looking at too. At that moment, character Cora, she arrives truly into the present.
This isn't a Woody Allen film where we need to dissect every relationship.
What are you depressed about?
I missed my therapy. I overslept.
I think Woody Allen should have done this
with
film.
40-minute conversation scenes. Yeah, relationship expert Woody Allen.
We have great sex.
But you're 17 years old.
Like, it's a romance. It's a historical romance. They saw each other. They're in danger. They fell in love. He's strong. He saves her. She's beautiful and clearly smart and cultured, and it has a matronly, caring energy. Yeah. What more do you need? You might get murdered tomorrow.
The character, I'm not the qualm that I have is not about the character development. They're fleshed out. I agree with. I get who these people are. I get enough context to these people, who they are, what their motivations are. Like, that comes through clear. But I continually like wonder in my head, like, why is he doing all of this?
You have to be the only person in the world who watches Last of the Mohicans and goes, "Oh, they really screwed up the romance part of this." Like, I can't imagine that takeaway. As I was rewatching it, I took down some notes of things that I particularly really love, and I thought, I think so much of the cinematography is really beautiful, and particularly, maybe not during the battle. You don't like the long lens, but so much of the landscape and the scenery, and sort of intertwined with that, the set design and the production design, that this movie feels and looks so real and tangible, and there's so much detail going on in the background of almost every shot. Towards the beginning of the film, when the character Duncan, the British soldier, is introduced, and he's coming to try and talk Cora Monroe into marrying him and stuff, and in the background there's just these beautiful signs of the time, technology of the time, that wheel that's like grinding the apples, and there's just a big pile of cabbages off to the side, and that beautiful shot of he and her on the little like tea table out in the middle of this meadow with nothing around them. That shot right prior to that, where they go over the bridge, that wide shot of the bridge, which is really
that's the best shot of the movie.
I also noticed that for the most part, I'm sure there are like exceptions, because there has to be, but it almost seemed so, I mean, for better and worse in some shots, I'll admit that, but almost so much natural light, like almost entirely natural light. And it makes all the sense for this film, because it feels very natural and real. And it's like, sometimes I can't really see that guy's face, but it's okay, because we're in 1775. Like, that's what it looks like right now. It's shadowed. There's,
So I have two things that I would say positively about this film, and you're sort of touching on one. So I'll echo your sentiments here to not say that I'm just a complete Scrooge for those who do like this film. Because Scrooge hated Last of the Mohicans. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, classic Scrooge.
Last of the Mohicans sucks.
That was his thing. The scale of this film was very impressive to me. a lot of moving parts, big sweeping escapes with a lot of different people and extras and timed, I don't want to say maybe choreography, but just action happening throughout the frame as you see a lot of battlefield, and they're all practical people. You know, in those that nighttime scene that you were referencing to with the cannons, that cannon fight scene, there was always a lot happening in there. And then also with the ambush scene, like there was hundreds of people, it just felt like an insurmountable amount of human beings, and so much action and so much happening all at once within the frame. To just organize that, to have that be a day of production or multiple days of production, like thinking about it from a filmmaking standpoint, that I was impressed with. Less on like the actual result in the film, but just thinking about it from as directors, as filmmakers ourselves, thinking that must be that must be really difficult. Like I was impressed with to not just do it in a 30 by 30 foot green room and be like, yeah, we'll put all these thousands of Indians in here later. Like it's fine. Just react. You know, like that must have been such an undertaking. So I was impressed with that.
Yeah, completely. The really, I overuse this word, but just the visceral nature of everything, the very practical effects. You know, like I don't notice off the top of my head. I don't notice like any real CG work or anything. I don't think there's any. I
would be shocked if there was any, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's really beautiful and really natural, which just suits the subject matter so much.
Yeah. So kudos there. Congratulations.
Do go on.
But from a story standpoint, I'm getting back into the story. The next thing I would say, I feel like you're going to disagree wholeheartedly even as I begin to say this. I never felt worried for Daniel Day-Lewis. He was never threatened in the film in a way where I thought he couldn't do it. It felt I never questioned whether he was going to win or lose. It was just when he was going to win, at what point in the film. There didn't seem like high stakes moments where I just didn't know what was going to happen, and it's up and down and like, oh shit, I don't know. Like the closest thing you get to it is the waterfall scene. But that's like, it just seemed when he gets captured, they just walk in, they go, you're captured. And he goes, okay, we'll deal with this later. And then he's in jail, and it
seems so weird because I think the entire film is him having to overcome terrible, dangerous, constraining situations. Whether it's multiple battles where he's narrowly escaping death,
but they're
whether
not
he's
out
getting
to get
locked
him.
up, whether he's jumping off of a fucking waterfall in the middle of the night, whether he's walking in unknowing to this enemy tribe, where they're beating and stabbing him as he's walking in, as he's trying to just get there. Like the whole film, I feel like that's the crux is his willingness to constantly overcome all of this shit to be with her and to save her. So it's just weird. It's hard for me honestly, I'm not even trying to be a smart ass. It's just hard for me to understand how you can be like, I thought he was like smooth sailing. Like he was never threatened.
Not that I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. Not that threats didn't arise, but they just weren't challenges. Nothing seemed challenging for him. Nothing seemed like there's a breaking point. There didn't seem like, it just seemed like he's just going. It's just gonna keep going. He didn't.
Well, that's an interesting point. Like that to me seems like that's almost more about his character though, in the sense that he has such a strong resolve and so much confidence. Whereas maybe, I'm happy it's that way because he's very stoic and he's brave and that he's just going for it. But if there was a scene where he broke down quietly, privately to himself for 2 minutes, that's what you're kind of looking for.
That's what I'm looking for. Some moment of like, oh no, it's a real issue.
I'm not going to be able to do this.
Yeah, some, and it doesn't have to be as even direct as like, why I can't, like, but some sort of, I'd like it. I like it.
I feel like that's right up your alley.
I like movies just told directly right to my face. The adversity just didn't mean anything to him. Like it just didn't mean anything. It's just like, I'm gonna walk through fire. And it's like, okay.
I just imagined him jumping off that waterfall and on the way down yelling like, I might die, I'm really scared.
Yeah. But But even that part doesn't faze him at all. Like there's no, when he's getting cut and stabbed, I get that's like the point of it too, but like doesn't faze him. Doesn't faze him. He's just he's just walking through, getting assaulted. Like nothing seemed like it was going to harm him. It's like he's a fucking superhero. He's
got love. He's invincible.
You and I both know love is worthless. Let me ask you this question. Adjacent to what I'm saying, or just dovetailing into it, how many gunshots did he miss? How many times did he shoot someone and miss?
So now we're punishing him for being great.
The greatest marksman.
Now we're punishing him for being great.
The two scenes that stick out to me, which just blow my mind, with like these are not great weapons, by the way. If we're in the what 1800s, where are we?
1700s.
1700s. They're not the greatest weapons of all. The two scenes where it's like he has a scope, which he does not, where he's picking people off from the top of the tower, trying to let that guy escape from the nighttime battle.
Shittiest job in the world.
Yeah. And he's just picking people off from like thousands of yards away with this shitty musket. And they zoom in like he's got a scope, which doesn't exist. And then he does the same thing when he kills the guy, spoiler, when he kills the guy who's being burned alive. Like from where is he? From the woods, from hundreds, thousands of yards away, just zooms in. He's like, picked you off too. When he picks up two of these shitty shotguns and kills two guys at once, or just like, not plausible. Like this guy there's no flaws to him. There's no flaws. There's no sense of danger. He starts here and he just goes to the top. There's just nothing preventing him in any way possible. And it makes it unentertaining to watch if I don't feel pressure or threatened or upset or scared. I just watch this guy dominate. It's just not fun. It's not a fun watch because of that.
I disagree with 95% of that.
Sure.
Mostly your shitty attitude and your passion behind it.
It's just
your
bullshit.
whole tone, your whole nature, all of that I don't want to reward. I don't want to reward that.
Dude.
But the crux of your point can be taken and entertained. That's where I'm willing to go. Because
I just want to be entertained. I just want to be entertained. That's a great way to describe it. Humor me.
I get that. I get the general skeleton of what you're saying. Well, let's get into what I think is the best part of the film.
I hope it's the same thing I think is the best part of the film, but go ahead.
No, it's not a quality. It's a portion of the film. Is that what you're talking about?
No, well, go ahead. You just tell me what's your favorite part.
The best thing about this film is the soundtrack.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. That was what I was going to say.
That almost we don't even have to talk about.
Because
I believe that is the most agreed upon. It's just a universal truth.
Yeah.
This film probably has the best soundtrack of all time. I mean, I know that's a big statement, but you can't have the conversation without mentioning this. Great segue, talking about the music, to what I think is the best part of the film, which is like the final 15 minutes. That final 15, 20 minutes from the time he gets to that tribe, really, and starts to try to negotiate. Though you don't see any drama in that particular part, I think that's a very dramatic, beautiful scene where they're pleading. The turn of Duncan from heel to hero, to a guy who's willing to make a sacrifice, is heart-wrenching. It brings me to tears every time he does that, because he's such a
prick.
You just fucking hate him. Yeah, you just hate him throughout the movie. Like, can't wait for Daniel Day to tomahawk him to death. And then he finally discovers his honor and his bravery. And I just love that moment. I'm getting glassy-eyed right now. And then as they run off, and you just, when they take her younger sister and his brother, the recognition in his eyes, he looks at his father, and his father, they don't even have to communicate. He just looks and nods, and I'm going after her. And that entire scene that unfolds is just jaw-dropping to me. It was when I was young, and it remains that way now. And I think that portion alone makes this film like historic, like a no pun intended. I think that is I think the most remembered part of this film, the most impactful part of the film, And really, I think it's maybe my favorite ending of all time. I think that's true. My favorite ending to a film of all time.
Wow.
That whole segment is just the music and the fact that there's very little dialogue. I mean, if any, there I don't think there is. It's just let's lean into the song because the song is perfect. And that to Michael Mann's eternal credit, let's not, let's let that perform. Let's let that be the star. And now we're just gonna have some cool shots of Daniel Day and emotional. God damn, man. When the brother dies and falls down the cliff and Magua is just so fucking brutal, and then that beautiful blonde young girl, just like her it's so pure, and she just walks out onto that rock, and he kind of looks at her, and that moment he puts his hand out and does this, and covered with the blood of her dead lover. Come on. And she jumps like that. I'm sorry. I'll just recite moment by moment what happens.
Just tell me the movie. Explain the movie to us, Ever.
that fucking scene, man. Like that. Are you just cold and heartless and had no reaction to it?
Get it away.
Who are these people? I don't believe their love
These
story.
peasants. I do not appreciate this film. No, I agree. The best part of the film is the film's ending. The strongest scene, I would say, even more than that for me, is the "I'll find you, I'll find you wherever you are." Like that. I think that's a very powerful scene.
No matter how long it takes, no matter how far, I will find you.
And from that point on, like it does pick up. I see the value in what you're saying, and I see the value in the end of the film. So it's not like I disliked it. Just a lot of stuff to get me to that point I didn't love. You want to talk about performances?
The suicide. Let's talk about performances.
I guess.
Yeah. They're all perfect.
I don't know. I don't think there's a ton for Daniel Day-Lewis to do. Like it's a little straightforward. Like as I think alluding to some of the character stuff I was talking about earlier, like he just kind of goes, he doesn't, there's not a huge range until he gets to the part where he's like, "Oh, we'll find you." Mm-hmm. Pretty good, right? Pretty good.
Great impression. Nailed it.
Nailed it. So I don't, like, nothing blew me away because there wasn't a whole lot of nuance. There wasn't a whole lot of depth.
Daniel Day-Lewis is obviously very possibly the most talented actor of all time.
Of all time,
in cinema. I mean, I obviously have a soft spot for Sidney Poitier, but those are always the two that I go to. I say those are my two best favorite actors. I always think it's funny because I think Daniel Day-Lewis is phenomenal, as he always is. But forever, this isn't my favorite role of his by a long shot.
Yeah, I agreed.
Like, I think he does good, and I'm happy he's in it. But I don't know. Maybe it's to your point that there's just not that much to do within the character, and that might be why. And in true Daniel Day fashion, I've read obviously that he camped out in the woods and learned how to fire those weapons and
he scalped 8 people.
He was just stomping up and down the Vermont countryside, scalping rural farmers and their families. Madeline Stowe, phenomenal. Love Madeline Stowe. I think her performance is amazing, as we've mentioned. Wes Studi is he's Magua, and he is. I think he's a really, really amazing actor. He pops up in a lot of stuff, obviously as a go-to in terms of angry Native American. He is typecast, a lot in that, but
he does it well.
He
probably gave one of the better performances of the film. Very convincing, very authentic.
Yeah,
he was very good.
Phenomenal.
Yeah,
he's so good. This is his most iconic role, obviously. I just watched for the first time a movie called Hostels from a couple of years ago, starring Christian Bale and Rosamund Pike and Wes Studi, where he's he's much older now, but he's just consistently excellent in everything I've ever seen him in. I believe he just won sort of a lifetime achievement of sorts from the Academy, which is
very nice.
Much deserved.
And I'm really proud to be here tonight as the first indigenous Native American to receive an Academy Award.
Really phenomenal career. I think I like all the supporting roles too. The actor Stephen Waddington, I believe, is who plays Duncan. And
Duncan was good.
That guy, the perfect Duncan too. Perfectly named character.
Yeah, perfectly named. Duncan, Duncan phenomenal.
Fuck you, Duncan.
Douchey Englishman.
Yeah. Like so perfect, and I'm really impressed with him. I'm surprised he didn't have more of a career. I mean, he's had a very long, successful career. He's turned up in a lot of other films and turned in memorable roles. The one I think of most often is Sleepy Hollow, that Tim Burton movie.
You're a big Tim Burton.
For all the shit I've talked about Johnny Depp and Tim Burton, I love Sleepy Hollow, so I take back some of it. Johnny Depp is trash. Tim Burton is trash.
Tim Burton is trash. I like have it in my memory. Like you gotta.
I was trying to get clicks, Keith. I was trying to be edgy. I guess the last thing that I can think of is just, I think it's interesting maybe that, like you mentioned, not having an interest in this sort of film, historical pieces, kind of war. I would call this sort of like a war adjacent film. It's not really like a war film. And I just think that's interesting, but obviously people just have different interests. For me, I've really loved this film more and more as I've gotten older because my interests, which I've always been really fascinated by and wanted to learn a lot about the sort of American frontier and then the earliest years of America up through the 1800s. And the thing that really interests me and fascinates me about these kind of stories and that time period in particular, whether it's in film or book or anything, is sort of just the high stakes of daily life. And this sort of connects a little bit to our conversation on Fight Club about how we today, humans today, are kind of locked into this civilization and happiness and structure. And I have always, since I was a child, longed for, and I know I'm over-romanticizing a time where you could get cholera and die at 35. Like, it wasn't all heroic romantic epics, but just that time period and that energy where your life, like the decisions you make are important, and you have to be intelligent, and you have to be strong, and you have to be hardy to survive each day.
If you're living in a very hostile environment, you have no choice but to deal with practicalities first and foremost. That has to be built into your experience from a very, very early age. Otherwise, you will fail and die.
And you know, if you don't have success hunting, you're going hungry. And just where there's real consequences to ineptitude or failure, and I like that a lot. I pine for that, and I feel like I'm getting way too deep into my own psychology here, but I feel like there's a part of me that feels like I was born in the wrong time, because now we can sit on the couch and food is delivered and groceries are delivered and products are delivered, and I'm 25 pounds overweight and I'm just scrolling the channels, and healthcare is great. These are all great things, but it's not what we were designed for. And so a film like Last of the Mohicans really makes me, it sucks me in even further, because I can just, I long for that. Do you ever long for that, Keith?
Like, no, you're a fucking moron.